Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for attending the first open house for the Beltline Boulevard Pedestrian Improvements Project. So thank you to those who are on Zoom, to those who are calling in via phone, and then to those that will be watching this after the fact on the city's YouTube channel. Thank you very much for taking part in this, and let's get going. And so today I'll be introducing myself and the other staff and city folk that are helping us out along this way. We'll talk about how to use Zoom for this meeting, and then talk about the project in general as far as the where, the what, and the how, and then talk about what community feedback looks like, and then have question and answers at the end. And we'll also stop a few times during this presentation for interim questions. So my name is Ben Manabog, and I'm the transportation engineer in the city's engineering department. Joined with me today, I have some consultant staff and 2 ward council members. And so I'll try and direct traffic to make sure everyone can introduce themselves. So I guess first up would be Ward 1 council member Margaret.
Hi there. Thanks to those of you attending. It looks like a pretty good crowd, and I believe that this is the city's first attempt at a Zoom meeting with the public. Is that true?
That is correct, I believe, yes.
Well, so far so good. So I look forward to learning along with the rest of the folks on the line here tonight.
And then also joining us today is Ann Mavity, our Ward 2 council member.
Hi, I'm happy to be here and looking forward to hearing what a lot of our residents are thinking about these improvements. So looking forward to it.
Thank you. And then some of the consultant staff that will be help supporting me and other city staff. First is Wayne.
Hi, I'm Wayne Hull. I'm the project manager with the consulting firm SCH.
Right,
Next is Connor.
Yeah, I'm Connor Cox. I'm a transportation planner with Tool Design.
And then last is Chris.
I am Chris Bauer. I'm an engineer with Tool Design.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And thanks again for those of you joining us live here. And of course, those that will be watching this recorded at a later date. Before we get going, I just want to give an overview of Zoom. This may be the first time that some of you have used this platform. And if it is, no problem. I'm just going to kind of run through a couple of the different features here so that you can navigate the meeting here. So all participants are automatically muted upon entry. If you do have a question or a comment, you can use a feature that's called the raise hand feature, and then Chris will be able to unmute your audio so that you can make a comment or a question. Otherwise, perhaps the easiest way to ask a question or make a comment is to use the chat feature. So the bottom of your screen, you'll see a black ribbon. In the middle of that is the chat box. You can type your questions there. For those of you that are calling in by phone, you can also use the raise hand feature by pressing *9. And then in order to unmute and mute your audio, you can press *6. And as I think we mentioned earlier, the meeting is being recorded. So we encourage you to share with any friends or family or coworkers that weren't able to make it live here tonight. So a little more kind of visual detail for those of you that can see the screen here and are logged in on Zoom. If you have a question or a comment, Chris, go ahead and click the next slide. So the first thing you can do is type it in the chat window. Again, I mentioned that's in the bottom. That might be the easiest way. Next. Also, if you want to use the raise hand feature, you just click on the participants tab on the bottom. And then when you do that, a new box will pop up here, and there's a little blue hand that says raise hand. So when you click on that, that will notify us that someone has a question or a comment. And as I mentioned, Chris will be moderating the the conversation here, and he has the ability to unmute your audio so you can ask the question. All right, you can hit next, Chris. So I just wanted to walk you through how to use the video that we're looking at here. On the top right of your screen, you should see the video boxes of the presenters and attendees. There's a couple different settings that you can play with. You can minimize the screen by clicking that left icon. Next, Chris. The middle one, that blue square that's shown there in the screen, will show only the active speaker. So you might have that on right now, you would just see me. And then the one on the right side, it can show all the speakers. So that's the default setting. It might be easiest to just have that middle one on for simplicity. Next slide. All right, and I'll hand it over to Ben to give an overview of the study area.
Thank you, Connor. So the area we'll be talking about today is in two neighborhoods in St. Louis Park, in the Triangle and the Wolf Park neighborhood. On the map on the right-hand side of the screen here shows red line segments where we'll be talking about for this project. And so for those that can't see this, we're talking about Beltline Boulevard from 36th Street to County Road 25. Ottawa Avenue from County Road 25 to Minnetonka Boulevard, Lynn Avenue from County Road 25 to Minnetonka Boulevard, and then the County Road 25 Service Road from Beltline Boulevard to Lynn Avenue. Now for the service road, that's proposed as a trail to be installed on the north side of that road. However, we won't be talking about that segment for this project, as that is being constructed with the Southwest Light Rail ongoing construction, as well as the Sherman site for those that are aware of the park and ride facility in the southeast quadrant of Beltline Boulevard and County Road 25. Next slide.
Thanks, Ben. I'll cover the project schedule here. Right now, we're in the concept phase of the project, and actually Ben will be talking a little bit about what it means to be in the concept phase. Later this summer, we'll be developing, after we get through this concept phase, we'll be developing preliminary plans, and we'll be sharing that at another open house, possibly, hopefully in September. And then after that time, we'll be asking the City Council for input and approval to move on to developing more detailed plans. The detailed plans will be done through the winter months. And in order to get bids, the best bids possible, we need to have the plans approved by the City Council, MnDOT, and Federal Highways by the end of next March. That way we can have the improvements completed next summer, well ahead of the opening of the Southwest RT that's scheduled for public opening in 2023. Next slide.
All right, now we'd like to just do a live poll to kind of get a better sense of who we're speaking to tonight, what type of community members have logged in. So in just a second here, you should see a poll that pops up on your screen here. And we're just going to ask if you can check all that apply. So I saw the poll just popped up on my screen here. So as folks start to answer these, again, you can click all that apply and we'll see the results live here.
And it does look like it's working. I see some answers coming in.
Looks like we have about 3/4 of folks that have responded. We'll give a few more seconds here. All right, looks like about 90% of people were able to respond. Some of those folks that are on the phone might not be able to answer this poll, so this is probably everybody. Looks like some of the most, the highest ranking selections here are folks that are just generally interested in the project, people that either bike or walk in the study area, and then people that travel to or through the study area. So, all right, next slide, Chris. All right, back to Ben.
Thank you, Connor. So first, what is the project? What are we talking about? So the Beltline Pedestrian Improvements Project, I guess primarily is being able to provide safe and more comfortable connections to the upcoming Beltline Boulevard Southwest Light Rail Station, as Wayne was explaining before, which will open for operations in 2023. What this project also does is create more connections towards a lot of other things in this area, including the Cedar Lake Trail. Metro Transit also has 2 routes that are within this study area, a bunch of local businesses and the rec center and rock, different kinds of parks that are adjacent to here, and then also connecting to where you live. Next up. And so a few reasons of why we're taking a look at this project is we have some sidewalk gaps. And so what that looks like is on the left image here, there are parts where we just don't have any sidewalks, and trying to create the more ways for people to get around. And then the image on the right, we have some sidewalk segments that just end abruptly into just green, someone's front lawn. Next slide on. Another reason, County Road 25, also Highway 7, as it kind of goes along westward, it can be difficult to cross. So on the left-hand side here shows County Road 25 at Lynn Avenue, where there's really no great way to cross. And then on the right side, we have at Beltline at County Road 25. And we do have a way to get across on one side of the street. However, part of that is not as comfortable as the next slide will show on here. Some of these sidewalks are not accessible or comfortable. And so the middle 2 images of here are showing some utility poles in the middle of some of our narrow sidewalks on Lynn Avenue. And then the image on the furthest right is on 25, showing a very small asphalt trail that basically blends into the road as you're trying to connect towards the crosswalk. So today we'll be talking a lot about concept designs, and so I thought we should explain what that is and kind of the things that go into a concept design. So there are 3 main categories of what go into these: city policies, a technical analysis or some kind of study or report, and then community feedback. So we have a number of policies at the city that go into transportation projects like these. And so the first are council's strategic priorities. And those are kind of long range priorities of which the city council aims to work on over that time. And then this project is also part of Connect the Park, which is an initiative to add more sidewalks, trails, and bikeways across the city. And then also our comprehensive plan, which prioritizes pedestrians over all modes of transportation, then bicyclists and transit users, and then drivers. The city also has a climate action plan, which the midterm goal is to reduce vehicle emissions by 1/4 by 2030, and then becoming carbon neutral by 2040. The city also has a living streets policy, which talks about other aspects of transportation projects, such as economic benefits and environmental benefits. And then also our complete streets policy, which talks about addressing the safety of all kinds of road users, all ages and abilities, and also the different types of road users. Think of modes of transportation, walking, biking, and being sensitive to the local context. So a one-size-fits-all is not what a local context is. Next on. So then, working towards a technical analysis, what we had SEH do for the city is to help us understand how do people currently use on-street parking within the Triangle neighborhood. So the two of the streets that we're talking about for this project are Ottawa and Lynn, and any sort of impacts to on-street parking, we would want to know what those are, but we also want to understand how people use that to make sure that we make informed decisions as we kind of go through this. And so the image that you see in front of you is on-street parking on a weekday morning. And so street segments and parking lots in green are the least parked, 0 to 0.5% parked. And then those in yellow are somewhere in the middle. And then those in red are highly parked. And the information from this parking study and other images looking at different times of weekdays and also weekends will be available on the project website as we finish the rest of the study up. And so the third part of concept designs is community feedback. And so this is where all of you who are either watching live right now or on video after, these are different ways that you can participate and get your feedback into the city and for this project. And so the first is attending meetings, which all of you are already here. We'll be talking later in this presentation about a public input survey. And then also at the end of this presentation and also on the project website, there's my contact info, where if you have any further questions or concerns or anything else, please feel free to contact me and I can get that information to you as soon as I can. Also, your council members are here attending this meeting as well. But talk to them, talk to your neighbors, and also you have other council members, your at-large and your mayor that represent you as well. I've also done site visits in the past, so this is for those who, if you own a house or own a building and want to understand what impacts can be at your front door or on your property, that's something that we have done in the past as well with the ongoing pandemic that may look a lot different than in past, where having to ensure social distancing and things like that, but those things can be worked out. And then letters. In the past, I've also received letters in the mail from folks providing feedback as well. So next on.
All right, thanks, Ben. I'll kind of take things over here for the next few slides here, but before we get into some of the details and show the concept designs for each of these corridors, I thought we'd just take a second and pause to see if anyone had any questions about general questions about the project or the project timeline. I don't see any raised hands at this point or any questions in the chat box. So we'll just wait a moment, and if not, I can move on.
Connor, should we go back and just show the overall map? Because there was a comment in the chat box regarding that, just to
yeah, sure.
Get people oriented with the different segments. There you go.
Yep. Yeah, good idea. And I'll show individual maps of each of the corridors here. But again, here's kind of the study area overview. So you can see the 3 different corridors there along Beltline Blvd, Ottawa Avenue, and Lynn Avenue. Looks like we had a question come in. Do you have any initial thoughts about what you plan for Lynn Avenue from a building owner? Thanks, William. We'll get into that in just a second here, and then we'll have more opportunities to discuss Lynn Avenue. So. not seeing any other questions come in here, so I think I will move on. So kind of the next segment of the presentation here, we're going to get into more detail on each of the 3 corridors. We're going to start with Ottawa. After each presentation of each corridor, we'll pause and have an opportunity to have some discussion for folks to ask questions or provide comments for each individual corridor. And then we'll also have kind of a longer discussion period at the end. But let's start and get into Ottawa Avenue here. So on the screen here, you see the extents. If you just go back one, Chris, you can see the extents of the corridor here. So on the south end extends to County Road 25, and then up to the north end, Minnetonka Boulevard. So before we get into the couple of the concept design options that we've looked at, I wanted to just kind of provide an overview of the existing conditions, so what's out there today. On the left is an image taken recently, and then on the right, we see a cross-section of kind of what the roadway looks like. So both of these images, the cross-section and the photograph here, are looking to the north. If you can kind of get your orientation here. So on the west side, there's a 4-foot sidewalk. There's a 8-foot parking lane, and then there's 2 drive lanes in each direction. And then on the east side, there is a 5-foot sidewalk. So what we did was we developed a couple of different options for Ottawa. And this first one here, we're calling it the sidewalk option for simplicity. So what this does is it really improves the sidewalk conditions here. So make sure that all the sidewalks are connected along the entire corridor, as well as ADA accessible. So on the west side and the east side, there's a 5-foot sidewalk. There is a 4-foot shoulder on each side of the roadway, and then 2 10-foot drive lanes in both directions here. So that is the first option. And again, we'll kind of go back and have time to discuss these in more detail. The second option that we put together is the trail option. So again, from the west to the east, the west side of the roadway, there's a multi-use trail. So that would be a shared facility for people walking, rolling, biking, etc. Then there's 2 drive lanes, so 1 in each direction. The existing parking would be removed in both these options. And then on the east side, there's a 5-foot sidewalk. So with that, we can have kind of a discussion here and talk about both of these options. Up on the screen here, you see those again, kind of side by side, so it can help you compare all of these and look at the different options. So we'll keep an eye on the chat box. And again, if folks have questions or if they want to make any comments verbally, you can hit the participants tab and then raise your hand, the blue icon there, and we can unmute your audio.
So Connor, one question off the top. There's a question about the parking map. So the question is, does the parking map shown cover the period before or after the recent construction at the northeast corner of Ottawa and County Road 25?
So thank you for the question. We can get, as a part of what we'll put out, will be some of that information as the dates. Now, I believe you're talking about the Yeshiva Minneapolis construction, which I believe that this occurred after, and I'll let Wayne talk about that if there's anything to add.
No, actually, it occurred after the construction, but the parking study did occur during the first safe order. So there was nobody at the high school at that period of time. So hopefully that answers the question.
We have another question in the chat window. The question is, there's a pedestrian bridge over Highway 7. If a trail is built, wouldn't that discourage the use of the bridge? People are always crossing 7 on Ottawa with the light and skipping the bridge.
Thank you for the question. And I think, no, it wouldn't discourage the use of the bridge. The bridge also connects the trail that goes along Toledo Avenue on the very west side of the Triangle neighborhood, as well as connecting to Carpenter Park. It just gives folks more options to get where they want to go directly.
Another question we had in the chat window, the question was, would the sidewalk version include sharrows for bikes? And maybe a related version of that question is, are the 4-foot shoulders to be used as bike lanes?
Thank you for your question. And I'm just looking at both to make sure I get both of the questions. So these are not bike facilities at this time. Ottawa is scheduled to be a bikeway sometime in the future. This project is not establishing bikeways at this time. So sharrows would not be put on the street for this project.
Yeah, and a comment in the chat window about how the trail option would allow for bikes to go north from 25.
That's correct. It's a multi-use trail similar to if you go along Beltline Boulevard on the east side. That's currently a multi-use trail where folks both bike and walk and roll.
I think the question there was probably just to confirm it is a bi-directional facility, the trail, so you can go both directions.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yes, yep.
I'm not seeing any other hands raised or questions in the chat window. Do we want to move on?
I think we can, and as I mentioned, we're going to have an opportunity to have further discussion at the end here. I just kind of wanted to pause after each corridor while these are kind of fresh in everyone's mind. So why don't we go ahead and move on to Lynn Avenue for now, and if there's any other questions or comments that come up on Ottawa, we can always go back to those. So. All right, so now on your screen there is a map that shows the Lynn Avenue corridor in red there. So again, the extents of the corridor are the same as on Ottawa. So County Road 25 on the south end up to Minnetonka Boulevard on the north. This corridor, of course, is a little bit shorter than Ottawa, just due to the kind of diagonal nature of County Road 25 there. Next slide. So again, existing conditions here. You can see the photo on the left, and then again the cross section that's shown on the right here. So there is an existing sidewalk on the west side of Lynn Avenue. Then there's drive lanes in each direction, and then a narrow parking lane. So the roadway right now is quite narrow, and then the east side of the road there's no sidewalk facility. I also just wanted to mention while we're on the screen here, if you look at that image on the left, in the distance there, you can kind of see the utility poles. And that's a pretty common theme throughout this corridor. And one of the major challenges with pedestrian access along the corridor is that even if there is a sidewalk here that's 4 or 5 feet, it's effectively a lot narrower than that because of those utility poles. So that was one of the things that we're looking into here with this project, is improving upon that condition. So the next slide here shows the first option. So what we looked at was due to the narrow width of the existing roadway, it's really difficult to get everything squeezed into this corridor. And so we may need to start looking into some trade-offs. One option would be converting Lynn from two-way motor vehicle traffic to one-way. That could be either northbound or southbound. What we're showing here would be northbound motor vehicle traffic with a wide 8.5-foot sidewalk on the west side, parking available still on the east side, and then also adding a 6-foot sidewalk on the eastern side of the corridor. And again, what I wanted to mention, 8.5 feet is a pretty wide sidewalk by most standards, but again, effectively that might only be a 5-foot kind of passing zone around some of those utility poles. So we had to kind of look at some additional width on the west side in order to get around the utilities. So looking at the next option, if we did want to maintain two-way motor vehicle traffic on the roadway, we would have to eliminate the existing parking that's on the east side of Lynn. So this graphic here shows the two-way motor vehicle traffic. It shows a 7.5 foot sidewalk on the west side and then a 5 foot sidewalk on the east side. So those are the two options here. And I think similar to Ottawa, we can kind of go into discussion and discuss each of the options. So I see a couple of questions that are coming in here.
Yeah, so the first question in the chat window is how wide is a wheelchair? And I think this gets at, you know, how wide does it need to be to get around the utilities and some of the obstacles along Lynn?
Yeah, and I don't know specifically or exactly offhand. Is that something you know, Chris, or maybe Wayne?
Yeah, so the absolute bare minimum required by PROAG, which is the proposed rule that governs accessibility in public right-of-way, is a 4 foot minimum width. But that's only for short distances, and you must have 5 foot at various intervals to allow two wheelchairs to pass each other. That's what the proposed rule is. And to achieve that 5 foot width, it's very difficult with all of the utilities there to try and make this work, which is why we're showing some areas that are wider than that. In the chat window, we also have another comment about needing parking on Lynn. It says we need parking on Lynn. There's not enough parking as it is. Good comment. Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any hands raised or anything else in the chat window. One way on Lynn is a good idea. One of the comments.
Thanks for the feedback, William. And as I mentioned, one of the questions that we'll have on the survey is to get input on whether folks would prefer that one way to be northbound or southbound. So we'd love to get your feedback on that.
Maybe for those that are on the phone, also just a reminder of how to raise your hand if you're calling on the phone.
Star 9, I believe, or star 6.
Yep, star 9.
Couple additional comments or questions. One of the comments was not sure if we need 2 sidewalks, if one is so large. Yeah, and another question here, do we want feedback over chat? Absolutely, feedback in chat is fine. It's absolutely valuable. Getting at the point, not sure if we need 2 sidewalks if one is so large. Again, the reason that they're so large is just to meet ADA standards with all the utilities in place. So, no, it looks awfully large, but that's necessary to get around a lot of the utilities to have a functional sidewalk. If it was narrower than that, it wouldn't be meeting the standards of ADA. Another question in here related to traffic, asking, would a one-way on Lynn push extra traffic to Joplin?
Wayne, would you be able to weigh in on that? I know SEH did some traffic analysis work.
Yeah, thanks for that question. We did some analysis on the parking and a little bit on the traffic itself, and the volume of traffic is so low on these streets is that if you're to take 50% of the traffic and spread it out to the other streets in the neighborhood, you wouldn't really notice the additional traffic that would be traveling up and down to the other north-south streets itself. I don't actually have numbers in front of me, but that's kind of the higher level analysis or response that I have for that. Also, keep in mind too the comment that was having comments in the chat is that we're recording this also. So so at some point in time, especially when we share this with all the city council, is that all the comments or the chat box will actually be recorded and submitted as part of the report.
Another question in the chat window is asking about considering snow emergency issues. I was wondering if that's something we wanted to mention.
Yes, thank you for the question and comment. Snow emergencies and other other types of maintenance concerns are always part of these projects, and so I work directly with our operations department who do the plowing and sweeping of the streets, and we'll continue to work together on how to do all of those things safely and effectively with any kind of design changes that go along with this project.
A comment I think in the chat window is just noting that there's a lot of pedestrian traffic on the North Frontage Road. And then a question from Nils asking, are 2 sidewalks necessary on Lynn?
There, I was having trouble with the mute button. Thank you for the question. I guess that depends on who you're talking to. So to some folks, having as many options as possible, especially those adjacent to where you live, are the best, because you don't have to recross the street every time you're trying to do something, or if you're parking your car, having to cross over the street to reach to a sidewalk. There are things like that. There's also quite a few spots in the city that have one side of the street sidewalks. And those are things that we weigh along with these projects. But at least to me and to a lot of the direction that we've gone in the city, 2 sidewalks are preferable, at least in areas that have a lot of pedestrian traffic.
And maybe just to add to that too, I think the assumption here is that pedestrian volumes will increase once the light rail station opens up. There will presumably be more people walking to access that station.
Our drawings don't show this. It's hard to illustrate this in a typical section, but as part of the, again, like Ben mentioned earlier in the presentation, as part of the Southwest Light Rail Transit Project, that crossing at County Road 25 will be improved. So there'll be a better crossing to get to Lynn, get across the county road and to the light rail station. Much more comfortable facility than there is today. One more comment in the chat window is one thing to consider is that if you put a sidewalk on the east side, you'll be putting a sidewalk within feet of apartment windows. I think is getting at folks looking into apartment windows and stuff as they're walking by. And then another comment in here, Ben, maybe this is one for you, asking, will there be an opportunity to discuss specifically how it will impact my specific property? Offline would be better.
Thank you for the question. Yes, absolutely. My contact information we have at the end of this presentation. It's also on the project website, or if you end up calling City Hall, they can connect you to me as well. But yes, more than willing to talk about specific impacts as far as any of these concept designs go.
And then one last question in here about parking. So asking, is parking transit at the transit station sufficient, or will the neighborhood be getting the overflow? Related to Southwest Light Rail, I assume.
Thank you for the question. So I guess first off, the amount of parking and all the facilities directly at Southwest Light Rail is handled by the Metropolitan Council. So that's not something that necessarily I was a part of. However, what Southwest Light Rail is providing, that's something that we can help connect you to the Southwest Light Rail folks. There will be a park and ride at the Beltline station, and so what that is a parking garage similar to, if you're familiar to some of the Southwest Transit, some of the buses in the west suburbs, they have some of those as well, and so that's what's currently planned at the Beltline station to accommodate any sort of parkers to use Southwest Light Rail.
Looks like we had another comment come in here, or question. Are there currently sidewalks on Lynn north of Minnetonka Boulevard? Lynn actually terminates at Minnetonka Boulevard. So north of there, there's an apartment complex, the Park Embassy Apartments. So there's no sidewalk. There's a crosswalk that crosses Minnetonka to get to those apartments.
And I will answer just this one last question before I think we have to move on. Again, there'll be an opportunity at the end to circle back and answer more questions. I just want to try and keep things moving. The last question I was going to answer in here, would you consider parking on both sides of the street with a one-way street? We're showing what we're showing as a function of the existing right-of-way width. So while it would be ideal to show parking on both sides of a one-way street, it doesn't fit with what we've got to fit within the existing right-of-way. So I think the short answer to that is no, that wouldn't work with what we're trying to show here. I think with that, maybe we'll try and move on. And then again, we can circle back and answer more questions on this later in the presentation.
Yeah, we can move on to Beltline Boulevard and hand it over to Wayne here.
Great. Thanks, Connor. So the Beltline Boulevard segment includes providing a pedestrian facility along the westerly side of Beltline Boulevard to really complement the existing pedestrian facility along the east side of Beltline Boulevard, or closer to Bass Lake Park. This part of the project really requires quite a bit of coordination, as the northerly end from Park Glen Road up to County Road 25 is being built or accomplished by the Southwest LRT project. The southerly section will be completed with the very end of the southerly area is going to be completed with the West 36th Street project. And the area between West 36th Street and Park Glen Road will be completed with this project. Next slide. So if we look at the existing corridor, looking at this graphic, on the right side of the graphic is closer to Bass Lake Park. So basically you're looking northbound. It includes an existing, starting on the right side and working left, it includes a multi-use trail that has a grassy boulevard and about halfway, basically, there's a grassy boulevard and the other half is up against the curb. The travel lanes has 4 existing travel lanes. And then on the west side, there's a fairly large boulevard, and then there's parking lots and commercial buildings. So the next slide. So we actually just looked at basically one concept that can really, the only thing that can really fit in on the west side of the corridor itself. So starting again, once again, looking northbound with Bass Lake Park on the right side of the graphic, the existing multi-use trail will stay in place. The roadway itself actually will be restriped with the Beltline and Monterey Drive project, and then that'll include two bike lanes, 2 travel lanes, and a center turn lane. And then we'll be adding with this project a 10-foot, excuse me, multi-use trail along the west side of the roadway itself with a grassy boulevard, and that'll extend from West 36th Street up to Park Glen Road. With that, we'll take another break here and take any questions that you have on this segment of the project.
And while we're waiting for questions to pop up, maybe we can circle back and answer one. Sorry, William, I cut you off on Lynn. William had a question, will the city be removing snow from these sidewalks? I think that popped up during the Lynn Avenue.
Yes, so thank you for the question. And so in short, yes, the sidewalk and other pedestrian facilities for this are part of Connect the Park. And so when we, any pedestrian facilities with that are what we call community sidewalks. And so those are shoveled or maintained by our operations staff or our park staff, depending on the type of facility.
A question in the chat window, cars back up now when there's a train on Beltline, and that's with 4 lanes. What will happen with less than 4? This is getting at the change in lane configuration shown there.
Thank you for your question. And maybe this is something that we can also help provide in other later graphics. So actually at the tracks, at the Southwest Light Rail tracks, it will remain 4 lanes where that transition happens from 3 lanes to 4 lanes happens at around Parkland if you're traveling northward. So there will still be 4 lanes in the immediate rail area.
Another question in the chat window, if there are dedicated bike lanes, will the multi-use trail really be multi-use?
I can answer that just with my personal perspective, at least. I think ultimately it kind of comes down to the user that's using the facility. So there's a very wide range of comfort levels when bicycling. So there are a number of folks that are comfortable biking right on the street next to moving motor vehicles, but perhaps a parent that's with a toddler or an older adult wouldn't feel comfortable biking on the street. And so that's where the multi-use trail option is nice for folks that aren't comfortable with that, to provide kind of a secondary bikeway opportunity.
Another question in the chat window, I want to make sure I get this right. The question is the elevated platform at Beltline to be used by light rail? And maybe there's a little bit of confusion here. What we're showing in the window, if you guys can see my mouse, I don't know if you can see it on the screen. We're showing a planting strip. We're showing what looks like a little elevated island, but that's just a section that's intended to be representative of the entire roadway. What we're not trying to do here is depict any details of the station platform. So Southwest Light Rail has some details. It's got some renderings of what that platform will look like, but this project in particular won't be affecting that. And we're not trying to depict anything that shows anything happening at the station.
And actually, I'll just add something, because I get this question a number of times, and so I think the elevated platform, what you may be thinking of is the current bridge that goes over Beltline Boulevard at the rail, and so that elevated bridge is not for any trains. That's actually for that's the replacement of the Cedar Lake Trail, the regional trail that goes east-west. So that'll be for pedestrians and bikes only.
Another question about the roadway configuration that we're showing in here, the conversion from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, saying there will be 4 traffic lanes merging to 2 lanes within this plan. This makes it seem like it would make traffic flow more difficult. I could take a stab at this too. Ben, I'd welcome you to weigh in too if you have any other thoughts. But the roadway configuration too is not happening necessarily as a result of this project. What we're doing is we're taking that from the 36th Street concept drawing. And one of the things that is kind of nice to think about when you look at some of these, one of the big improvements that new roadway section will have is it'll have a left turn lane. One of the things that really slows down, creates congestion on a 4-lane road is people stopping, waiting to turn. So for the traffic volumes that we see on Beltline and similar roads, just by adding that turn lane and getting all of that slowing, turning traffic out of the through traffic in both directions, you can actually notice an improvement in performance. So that the change in performance that you might think you would get from going to 4 lanes down to 2 lanes in each direction can really be helped by adding that turn lane. That can make a huge improvement, actually.
Yep, that was a fantastic answer. And the only other thing I wanted to add is if you still have other feedback and other questions relating to the Beltline Boulevard restriping, which as we said once, that will be a part of the that and the Monterey construction that'll be happening in 2021. You can still send that to me, and I can get that over to Jack Sullivan, who is the project engineer for that.
Head back in the chat window again. Question from Nils: are bike lanes needed if you have a multi-use trail?
Thank you for your question. Oh,
go ahead, Ben.
So yes, thank you for your question. I think in this case, having trails and on-street bike lanes can serve different purposes. So as some of you may know, on the east side, the trail is also a part of the Bass Lake Preserve trail ring. And so a lot of that traffic works towards the park. And so for those that are trying to use the street to go from place to place, may not want to be interacting with folks enjoying Bass Lake Preserve. There's also different levels of comfortability that people have with either on-street or off-street lanes. And so that can be helped by having different types of bike facilities. And then also in addition, this is one of the major north-souths that get folks across. One of the biggest barriers that we have in the city is our railroads. And so having an easy way for people of all types and ages to get to and from the station is preferable.
Question in the chat window from Bob. There are a lot of bikers coming out of Steel Toe on West 35th Street. Will there be a ramp in the curb to get to the East Trail?
I could probably field that. Thanks for that comment, that question. Right now, we're not planning a crossing at West 35th Street. There will be a crossing at Park Glen, actually. So they will be able to get up to Park Glen or actually down to 36th Street on the westerly trail to transfer over or bike over to the easterly trail.
And I think we'll take just one last question here before we move on. 2 more questions, because I don't want to cut William off again like I did last time. 2 more questions here, and then we'll have another opportunity again at the end of this. Mike asked, will there be a ride share, bikes or scooters added along Beltline?
Thank you, Mike, for your question. So in short, we don't have any plans for additional rideshare, and that's for a few reasons. So one, current shared mobility in the city, if you remember last year, came in the form of spin scooters, and we don't have any vendors under contract right now, and that's mostly to do with the ongoing pandemic. I know that Minneapolis may start having some service in the coming weeks, and then possibly after that, more may be interested in St. Louis Park. In the long term, once Southwest Light Rail comes into town, there may be additional opportunities that come along with that for shared mobility, and we'll be working on those as they come up.
And the last question we had in here was from William, and it's a good question. It's asking about what about east-west pedestrian traffic along County Road 25? And if you'll bear with me, I'm actually going to flip back several slides until we can find a picture that shows this. Because we mentioned this briefly in the beginning, but I think it's something worth noting. When we were looking at the study area overview drawing, we have this leg here on the County Road 25 service road. And one of the improvements that is included with the Southwest Light Rail Transit project is to build a trail along that frontage road. So this piece in red includes a trail as part of the Southwest Transit project. So we're not talking a lot about that because it's not happening as part of this effort. But that's an improvement to accommodate east-west pedestrian traffic along County Road 25. Ben, I don't know if you have any more to add to that. Okay, great. So we will, sorry, I get back to where we're at. Survey.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks for all of the comments and questions there. Moving on here. So an additional way that we're planning on gathering community member feedback is through an online survey. And we've developed the survey. It'll be going live tomorrow, and it'll be open through the end of the month. So to get to the survey link, you can just go to the project website, which is listed there on the screen. And if you prefer to take a paper copy of the survey, you can contact Ben. His phone number and email address are shown on the screen here as well. And one thing I just wanted to mention about the survey is the graphics that you've seen in this presentation are just what we call typical cross sections. So they're just sort of a cross section of what the roadway looks like. We have a little more detail of all of these concepts in the survey, so you can actually look at the sort of the plan view of what these look like. So it gives you a little better perspective on some of those questions when it came to the roadway configuration and when the lanes shifted and things like that. Next steps for the project. So as I mentioned, the survey opens tomorrow, runs through the end of the month. In addition, we will be doing some small group stakeholder meetings. So reaching out to various groups near the corridor and getting more detailed input from them in smaller group setting. After the survey closes at the end of the month, we will be gathering and reviewing the results of that survey, and then revising the concept drawings and preparing the recommended concepts based on some of the input that we received from the meeting today, as well as through that survey. Following that, we will be doing another open house, which will likely again be virtual. We hope this will happen sometime in the fall, so keep an eye out for another announcement. And then we'll be presenting the recommended concepts to the City Council again in the fall of 2020, around that same time frame.
Before you start with that, I do want to say real quick that the survey is already live, and so that the link on the project website that is open. And then for folks that were talking about the paper copies that are available, and especially for those that are calling via phone right now, the number to contact me is at 952-924-2669, and I'll make sure to say that again at the end of this presentation. Go ahead, sorry.
All right, yeah, and with that, we just want to provide another opportunity to answer any questions that folks might have or listen to any comments. Again, please just ask questions that are related to this project. And if you have questions, you can enter them in the chat window again, or we'd also encourage folks to use the raise hand feature to ask your question orally. And I think Ben alluded to this earlier, but I just wanted to mention after the meeting here, we're going to be developing an FAQ. So we'll be recording all of these questions that folks had and then putting together our answers and posting those on the project website.
One of the comments in the chat window asking if we can put the survey link in there. Connor, would you be able to paste that in there? Into the chat window, the survey link?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Awesome. Ron raised his hand, so I will unmute Ron. Ron, if you have a question you'd like to share.
So I have several questions on the Ottawa segment. If you could go back to the slide that stated sidewalk gap. My question is there a, within the scope of this project, can we reduce the curb radius? So if we go up to sidewalk gap, it's one of the like 4th or 5th slide. Yes, so the visual on the left, you can see that the curb radius is about maybe 40 feet. Standard would be about 12 feet. And by reducing the curb radius, you're going to slow down cars and reduce the crossing distance for the sidewalk. Is that possible to be part of this project?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Connor had mentioned on the website there are some plan view drawings that show this. That is something that you'll notice in both of the plan view drawings. We looked at options to tighten that radius up for that exact reason. The crossing distance for that leg, if you look at how far somebody has to walk to get through there, it's super wide. So that's definitely something that is part of the concept design. One challenge I'll point out with that is that there's catch basin there and a couple utilities to work around. So those are details that have to be considered when we look at what you can get away with at that corner. But that's definitely something that's included in the concept designs.
Okay. My next question, I think, is actually the following slide.
Yeah.
The slip lane, and then it was mentioned that that little sidewalk, basically that little sidewalk is sunk. So all spring it's underwater. What is the plan to get that so that one, you get traffic out of the slip lane, or you get the pedestrians out of the slip lane right away, and that it separates the car traffic from the people?
Yeah. This intersection is interesting because it's going to be in a large way. A lot of it's going to be redone as part of the Southwest Light Rail project. Oh, Stephanie's got a great question too. Not an engineer. What is a slip lane? Yes, let's stop for a minute and explain what a slip lane is. In the drawing on the right, you'll notice that the right turn lane on County Road 25 has a little shortcut, a little hook, a little bypass almost. That's what we're referring to as a slip lane. And then just immediately adjacent to it, you can see that piece of trail that's in really poor shape, that doesn't drain very well either. So as part of the Southwest Light Rail Transit project, that corner of the intersection will get rebuilt with curb, and hopefully that will do a lot to improve the drainage in that area. And then if you take a look at the concept drawings that we've posted online, it shows kind of what we're showing, improve the trail through there. So what we're trying to do is match into what Southwest Light Rail Transit is doing. So we're not, impacting brand new work that they've just done, but at the same time improving pedestrian access, and hopefully as a result of that the work Southwest Light Rail Transit is doing, it's going to take care of a lot of the drainage issues there too.
And then my last question is there going to be signal priority for pedestrians? Right now, if you get to the crossing, you hit the button and you can wait many minutes before you actually are allowed to cross.
That is a really good question. Ben, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, so thank you for your question. And so operations, signal operations is a collaboration between the city and, in this case, the county. And when we have any of these kind of projects, those are conversations that we have. And so instances of that are, for instance, we're talking about that over on the end of the Monterey project and some other places. And so in short, we're working on it, and pedestrian priority is something that we talk about in a lot of these. So nothing final at this point, but those are things that we will be working on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions or comments? Oops. Uh-oh. Clicked one too far. Question in the comment window. I heard there will be a semaphore stoplight at Lynn over County Road 25. Is that still part of the plan? Yes, that is still part of the plan. The signal at Lynn will be installed as part of the Southwest Light Rail Transit Project. And if you look at the concept drawings that we've got on the website, the concept plan view drawings, you can see how we're proposing to match into that with the proposed sidewalks.
And I guess something I'd like to add with that, with the new signal that will be at Lynn Avenue, that will not connect, at least vehicle traffic, north up into the Triangle neighborhood. There will still be the kind of berm and the frontage road on the north side, so that will not be connected. However, as a part of our project, we will be connecting Lynn to that signal with what do you call it? The sidewalk and a crossing feature.
Comment in the chat window from Earl, appreciates the medium for the meeting. I appreciate that. That's great. It's good to know that the virtual format is working for folks. That's good feedback to hear too. Appreciate hearing that. Bristol has raised their hand. I'll unmute you, Bristol, if you want to share a question.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I am commented earlier about being excited to see the pedestrian access on the west side of Beltline Boulevard, in part because it just feels a little bit like a missed opportunity right now. But one question I had about that is, can you address a little bit of what will happen on like the southwest corner of that, I guess? And the clarity at that intersection with Monterey 36, of what happens kind of to that multi-use trail, and to, I guess also if the bike lane is part of this. Yeah, I don't know how to phrase that question more clearly, of where the traffic for those two parts gets directed. Does it just run into those sidewalks there, or help getting across that intersection?
Thank you, Bristol, for your question. And this is, I'll help link some of this stuff on the project websites, but in short, some of the construction that'll be happening on 36th Street in Monterey in the future will kind of change the way folks are kind of using it. And so the trail on the west side will continue in and will connect up with what we currently have on 36th Street. There will be accommodations for bikes to get around what will be a future roundabout at that intersection, and some of the drawings and mock-ups for that I can help provide either to you directly or as well on the project website to help clear things up.
Someone had asked if we could post the link to the project survey to the chat box there. So I just copied and pasted that in there. So we'd please encourage you to take that survey and also share it with any family, friends, or coworkers, or anyone that really travels to or through this area. The more feedback we get, the better. So.
Not seeing anything else for raised hands or questions. Anything else anyone wanted to ask about?
Question just came in asking if we're going to be sharing the slides, and absolutely we can. They actually may already be on the website. If they're not, we can upload those right away. So.
Yes, to confirm, they're already uploaded to the city's website, and if you're having trouble getting those, please contact me and I can send those to you directly.
Connor, would you be able to stick a link in there to the website, just in the chat window?
Yeah, no problem.
Can you share Ben's number again? Yeah, you better flip back to it. It's on the screen right there. Again, if anyone's on the phone, it's 952-924-2669. And then, yeah, there's the link to the project webpage in the chat window. All right. Comment popped up in the chat window, said, would love to have the online docs you refer to and questions be able to drop live on screen so you could refer to them, point things out, and then we don't have to make notes, go back. Yeah, apologies for that. We have done a lot of background information, and there's a lot of work that's gone into this. It's challenging to try and keep this at a level that we can get through it and respect your time, and still keep this, something that'll work relatively efficiently. So there is a lot more on the website that you can dig into. Apologies, we weren't able to get into a lot of that detail in the brief format tonight. Again, there'll be another open house in the fall where there'll be some more information too. So another opportunity, and during that meeting, we might be able to get in the weeds a little bit more on some of these details.
Yep, and you can contact me as well, George, and we can work through any questions or other concerns that you've got.
Anything else? Thank you, Margaret, for sharing your information. If you have questions and you want to reach out to Margaret.
For those of you that are maybe calling in, Margaret, the Ward 1 City Council member, just encourage folks to reach out to her directly, mrog@stlouispark.org. Or her phone number is 612-590-1806.
And then also listed on the screen is Southwest Light Rail contact information. And so that's anything dealing with the construction of the light rail, the platform, the trains, the transit schedule moving forward and how that works. And so you can find more information about that at swlrt.org. And they also have a construction hotline, which is at 612-373-3933, and they'll be able to help you with anything around that. And then having gone through the website, they also have a lot of great graphics and other models to help you understand what will be happening for Southwest.
And just a couple other notes here in closing. As we mentioned, we are recording this presentation, so we'll be uploading that to YouTube and then sharing it via different social media channels, as well as posting it to our project website. So please spread that around if you know anyone that was unable to attend tonight. I can see our attendance is sort of dropping down, so I think we're sort of winding down here. But maybe just in closing, thanks again to everyone for tuning in. We appreciate the feedback, and we encourage you to take the online survey.
Yes. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your time here, and please contact me if you have any kind of further questions going forward, and I'll kind of answer the question I see in the chat here. Nils is asking, will anyone be assessed for work done if they own property on the street? And the answer is no. The city does not assess for any of our construction work, and so that includes this project.
Not seeing any other questions come in here, so I think with that we can close our presentation, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you all very much, and have a great rest of your night.